Hello, hello. Welcome to the Daily Fantasy Whiff. As I'm sure you know by now, I'm Big Italy 42 and he is Josh Shepardson at BChad50. And we're talking about tonight's 9-game slate. We're talking FanDuel and DraftKings. We're going to give you fades and stacks. So we're going to go through each and every game, talk about if there's any weather concerns, who's a favorite, what the total is, if we're playing the pitcher, if we're not, how much do we hate that pitcher and want to target him with bats. And maybe if we just like them in general, we think they're nice people, but they're going to get their ass kicked tonight. So we'll see how it goes. But either way, I think it's going to be a fun time. So, all right, let's go ahead and kick things off. We'll go starting off with the Mets at the Phillies, and not quite the matchup that we got yesterday with these two teams. That kind of ended up being a disappointment. But Jonathan Neese at Aaron Harang, two guys who have actually pitched well this season. Neese currently listed at a minus 115 favorite, opened at minus 122, 7.5 run total. So Vegas not expecting a ton of runs, and seems like all of the ex-Reds pitchers are pitching tonight. And these are guys like Aaron Harang was very good for a little while. Never been a great ground ball pitcher. He's been a contact pitcher that gets outs, and he's been pretty good this year. I mean, you look at his numbers: 19.6% strikeout rate, 5.4% walk rate, 30.6% ground ball rate. You hate. But 298 WOBA to lefties, only at 200 WOBA to righties, just one home run allowed. So, I mean, he's had a good season. On the opposite side, you've got John Neese, who is below league average in strikeout rate, right about league average in walk rate. He's a great ground ball pitcher this year, especially 64.1%, but pretty high WOBA to lefties and righties. So, I think he could definitely be hit. And that brings us to our first stack of the day.
Yeah, I mean, this is not only a interesting stack in that people aren't going to be on the Phillies. They're not a terribly good offense, but it's going to be a cheap one, like uber cheap. Like you can afford whoever you want everywhere else on the diamond cheap. And as you pointed out, you can conceivably run Bumgarner and Kershaw together on DK with this stack and still have money to spend on hitters elsewhere, which, let's be honest, if you're hitting that Philadelphia Phillies stack with Kershaw and Bumgarner, you're going to be in good shape in GPPs because it's not going to be owned, and you're going to have you should get a huge scoring output from your pitching.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like you said, we tinkered with it here a little bit, and it seems pretty easy. I mean, you get those guys in, and you've still got on DraftKings a little bit of flexibility, of course. So you plug in those guys, the guys that we assume are top six, which is Ruiz, Ruff, Utley, Galvis, Revere, Sizemore. Obviously not in that specific order, but then you can move Galvis third base or shortstop, so you have one of those open. You have outfield open, 4K per player. I mean, you can do a lot, or you could even bump one of the pitchers down, maybe to Dallas Keuchel, and then you can get elite options at both those spots. So, I mean, you could do a ton, as usual, with the Phillies stack. So I'm a big fan there. And on the other side, Mets stack, I mean, I could see it. It's got some merit, but there's just not a ton of hitters you like. I mean, you like Duda, of course. Kadyr's been hitting the ball well. But outside of that, I mean, really no one that you're just itching to play. So, I mean, it'd be like if Aaron Harang's going to get hit, it's going to be a whole bunch of singles and big innings and things like that. It's not going to be, a ton of power. And if I'm getting stacks, I want guys who can hit the ball out of the ballpark on any pitch.
Yeah, I mean, you could add Granderson to that mix as the leadoff hitter, but it's just not a group that I love for a stack. There's just not a lot of depth there. They're great one-off options, but they're not a group that I'm looking to go out of my way to stack, basically.
Yeah, I'm completely with you there. So that's going to wrap it up for that game. Moving on to St. Louis at Pittsburgh here. And we've got a guy that was a sexy pick there for a little while in some GPPs, even some cash games a couple of times. Carlos Martinez, he's a plus 107 dog. Vance Worley, minus 117 favorite. Another 7.5 run total. And Martinez was the guy that a lot of people were targeting. He's a high strikeout guy. He's got a nice rate on the year of 22.4, but he walks a lot of guys, 11.2%. Keeps the ball on the ground at 50%, but has had big-time troubles with left-handed bats. 4 home runs allowed already, 341 WOBA. And, so as you're looking at this one, Vance Worley is like your epitome of average. Like, he's not a great pitcher. He's not a bad pitcher. He just kind of gets it done. He just goes out there, does his job, and that's about it. He's had a couple good performances, but for instance, went 6 innings against the same team on his last start. 5 Ks, gave up 2 earned runs. So not bad for him there. Got 10 fantasy points on FanDuel. So if you got to have a side on this one, it's going to be the Pirates stack, right?
Yeah, I would think so. You've got a couple lefties that we expect to hit near the top of the order. Starting off with Polanco leading off. Walker hitting second. McCutchen, you don't get the left-handed batter advantage against Martinez, but we know McCutchen's an elite player when he's going right. Nicked up right now, so who knows when he will be going right, but has created a discount with him. Gregory Polanco, Starling Marte, all these athletic toolsy Pirates outfielders are kind of blending right now, but Starling Marte, again, you're not getting that lefty, but 1 through 4, that's a really talented group that has stolen base upside, that has power upside, that can feed off of each other. And then I would expect Pedro Alvarez to possibly hit 5th, which gives you another big power bat, and it also gives you another lefty against Martinez. So there is some merit to a Pirates stack against Martinez. Not one that I feel like I have to get a ton of exposure to, but they are in play on a night where I don't think there are a ton of stacks, and they're one that's going to be low owned, I would expect. And then without Matt Carpenter, you just don't have the bats that I would normally want to exploit Vance Worley. He struggles with lefties, but he's tough on righties. And your best hitters that are left in that St. Louis lineup are right-handed now. There's no Matt Carpenter to lead things off. So definitely takes a bite out of that lineup and takes some shine off of a potential Cardinal stack just because there are not enough left-handed bats there to really like.
Yeah, and some scary stuff there with Matt Carpenter. He said extreme fatigue. He can't sleep at night. So, I'm the biggest anti-Cardinals guy in the world, but Matt Carpenter is a hell of a young player. Hopefully hopefully things are all right. I mean, it's early in the season for something like that. I mean, that's scary stuff where you're saying you can't even sleep at night. I mean, that's bad. So,
yeah.
Either way, enough with the sappy nonsense. Get better soon, but don't cry about it. Let's move on to the next game here. We've got Chicago Cubs at the Milwaukee Brewers, and this is what we're talking about here. Some big-time bats here in a hitter's park. Could certainly see some fireworks here, and Vegas tends to agree. 8.5 run total. Just so happens to be the same total we have in Coors Field tonight, hint, hint. So this right here, I know you're a big fan of some stacks in this game. So am I. I think this might be your perfect scenario to get away from that Coors Field game and get yourself some stacks in a great hitter's environment. You've got Kyle Loesch, the most marginal of favorites at -108. I already mentioned the high total, and this one's going to be fun to stack tonight. I love it. FanDuel's got some great prices for these guys. You've got Ryan Braun at $3,500, Chris Davis $2,300. You and I were speculating for the show maybe where Chris Davis hits. Obviously, Scooter Gennett's been hitting second, but that's been against righties. He's not going to hit second against lefties, so maybe some guys get bumped up. Maybe Carlos Gomez comes back. All I know is that I want to play a ton of Brewers, and I want to play a ton of Cubs, and I'm really hoping we get Chris Davis in a nice spot tonight. He's got a really good price.
Yeah, I mean, this is a perfect situation where you might have some people fading guys that missed yesterday's game for the Brewers, but could be back tonight. Carlos Gomez is expected to play this weekend. As long as he plays, he should hit leadoff. He crushes left-handed pitching. Late scratch last night was Aramis Ramirez. He was actually in the lineup and then just didn't proceed out of the dugout and shocked the world. I mean, thankfully for the DFS gamers, he wasn't a high-owned player because there would have been a Twitter meltdown, I'm sure. But back tightness, maybe slept wrong. I mean, honestly, though, not the type of injury that I'm super concerned with, and I would expect to see him back in short order. So if he's back tonight, he should hit in the heart of the order, maybe. And this was just speculation on my part, but with the way that lineup is constructed, maybe they go a 1 through 4 in some order of Gomez, Braun. We've seen him moved around the lineup a little bit. Maybe he gets bumped up to second. Aramis and Chris Davis, and that's 4 right-handed batters who hit left-handed pitching really hard at a great hitter's park. So perhaps they continue to hit Lind in a favorable spot. We know that he's much better against righties than lefties in his career, but he's been so good out of the gate. And it's tough to know because we have that manager change. We got Ron Renicky fired. We got Craig Counsell in there trying to get everybody to do his batting stance. That's not really the truth. I wish it was because that would be tremendous to watch. But let's keep an eye on the lineup card because we don't know what he's going to do with his lineup yet. But if he stacks those righties against Wood and you get those guys in those sweet lineup spots, like that is a potentially elite stack. So, and then on the other side of things, we don't have a ton of left-handed batters to take advantage of Loesch, but we certainly like switch hitter Dexter Fowler at the top of things. Anthony Rizzo is my top play at first base, so we love him, obviously. And then you've got huge power from Chris Bryant that hasn't, manifested itself in a homer in a big league game yet. But you take that at Miller Park, you take the righty-righty matchup, that's fine. And then Jorge Soler probably going to hit somewhere in that top four. It's possible they could put Chris Coughlin up there, but definitely stack potential there, lots of it.
Yeah, like you said, Soler was the guy who only had 2 home runs coming last night. They both came in the first. Not in the first game, all in one game. But certainly in play. There's a bunch of big time bats here, as we know. They're also very strikeout prone. But of all the pitchers tonight, no one has given up more home runs than Kyle Loesch. 9 already on the season, 3 to lefties, 6 to righties. So certainly very beatable. And I mean, we could say it a million times, however we'd like to say it. Gotta love this stack tonight on both sides. So big fan there. All right, let's move on here to Cincinnati, the Chicago White Sox, and contrary to what you may have heard the first time, the second time, the 8th time, everybody getting switched around here. But looks like it's finally official. Jason Marquis at Carlos Rodon. And is it Rodon?
Rodon.
Okay. Rodon. Minus 130 favorite here. And it looks like Vegas expected Johnny Cueto to pitch tonight as well. 7.5 run total. Now it's up to 9. So that puts Mr. 7-9 back in play for us at his really cheap price tag, especially on FanDuel. $3,500, Jose Abreu, the best number 79 of all time, if you ask me. But, him in play against Jason Marquis, we know he never had overpowering stuff, and he's certainly beatable. We know he's been really bad against righties this year, throughout his career, over the last couple decades. So, he's got to be your top play, but it's hard to stack the White Sox, which is frustrating because he's got Adam LaRoche, too, who's also got a great price. He's only $2,400 on FanDuel. But my advice, if you're going to stack this game against Jason Marquis, and I think you're of the same thinking, get yourselves your stacks and then alternate Abreu and LaRoche out. Yep. Same team. That's the only way you can really stack this team on FanDuel or DraftKings right now.
Yeah, and it's going to be interesting to see what the lineup looks like tonight because they are playing a doubleheader today. We don't know exactly what it's going to look like, but certainly if Adam Eaton's leading off, left-handed batter against Jason Marquis we like. Melky Cabrera, switch hitter, would be hitting left-handed against Marquis, and then you figure Abreu's going to hit third, or he has hit cleanup some, so maybe they throw those two in the top 3 somewhere and bump up Emilio Bonifacio if he gets a spot start. There's a lot of potential here, but whoever's hitting in that order, we certainly like against Jason Marquis, and they make for a fantastic stack tonight.
Yeah, and on the other side, obviously, we've got a young pitcher in Rodon here who, he's making – is this his second? No, this is his first actual start, right? He's made appearances, yep. But this is his first start. Okay. So, you've got guys – obviously, he's a lefty, so you got guys like Jay Bruce are going to be kind of neutralized. He's power only against lefties. Doesn't hit for average anyway. But, we see the early slate already, and there's no Joey Votto because he's giving his suspension today. No Jevin Masaraco, who was supposed to DH last night. So that makes both of us think – Votto, which isn't a lefty-lefty matchup, he's one of the better in the game in lefty-lefty matchups, so you got to consider him. Masaraco, you assume, will probably be batting around cleanup. Marlon Byrd hits lefties well. You got a switch hitter up top in Billy Hamilton, who obviously doesn't have much power, but he can get on base, score runs. So the Reds make for a pretty interesting stack too. But on the other side of it, you also may be looking at Rodon as a high strikeout guy against this team. So you can play this one both ways, but
yep.
Obviously Rodon only a tournament play, but I think some Reds players even in play for cash games here.
Yes, the Todd Father, we like him against the lefty. Masaraco's price point is fantastic, $2,400 on FanDuel. If as long as he's serving as designated hitter as he's supposed to, really good price point. This has big stack potential. I love Rodon's long-term outlook, but this is a rookie making his first start and has had issues with control at times. When he's sharp, he's fantastic, which is why he's in play for at least a single bullet in GPPs. But as a lefty, he's gonna enhance the value of Todd Frazier, Devin Masaraco, and as Justin noted, Joey Votto really good against left-handed pitchers, even though he's a left-handed hitter. So not concerned with that matchup. You could get a nice 1-4 stack, especially with Bird hitting in his customary 2-hole, hopefully, again this evening as well. So definitely stack potential on both sides of this, and it's at U.S. Cellular Field, so there's huge home run potential here too.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're in agreement here that both sides of this one certainly playable, certainly stackable. Lots of things going there. And next up, Los Angeles Dodgers at the Colorado Rockies. For me, this one's simple. I am still playing Clayton Kershaw. I am not playing Rockies against him outside of maybe Troy Tulowitzki, but this is the Fades and Stacks podcast, so that's a discussion for another time. And with that being said, I love the Dodgers tonight as a stack, and I'm sure everyone who has ever watched a baseball game, ever played DFS, also loves them, but a lot of guys in great spots here. I mean, Jock Peterson, a guy in lefty-lefty, you don't love that. But, I mean, you've even got some guys like Alexander Guerrero, who's been showing a ton of pop in his bat. I think the way to differentiate yourself here in Coors Field is to not just go with the 1 through 6 stack. It's maybe, I'm not saying you pick and choose, you don't go 1, 3, 5, 7, anything like that. But, maybe take out a guy that you're not a huge fan of. Like, there's not a lot of shortstop options, so Jimmy Rollins is going to be a guy you're probably going to be playing. But, maybe see how the lineup goes. Maybe take the 4-hitter out, put in the 7, or go wrap around, maybe to hit the pitcher 8th. I don't know. There's a lot of ways you can go here, but just know it's going to be a popular stack, so you got to differentiate yourself somewhere. But just make sure Scott Van Slyke's in your stack.
Yes, absolutely. And the other important thing to mention here is watch the weather forecast. They are saying snow. Definitely precipitation. Supposed to be a low of 30 last check. It's supposed to feel like 15. This is certainly not what you'd expect for May baseball. But keep an eye on it. It's definitely going to have an impact on the game tonight. But as long as they play it, it's not going to impact me getting Dodgers in my lineup. Let's put it that way.
No, not at all. So we're in agreement here. Everybody in play. Pick your spots. And that's pretty much all the analysis you need here. San Diego Padres at the Arizona Diamondbacks. Obviously, this one a huge park shift for these guys from San Diego. Well, they're not all from San Diego, but they play in San Diego. Maybe I guess I don't know that as absolute fact. Maybe they are from San Diego. Either way, Chase Anderson on the bump. We know about his reverse splits against righties. I know that's something you key on a lot. 8-run total. Chase Anderson is a slight favorite at -112, which is telling you, obviously Vegas expecting some runs scored because Tyson Ross is a considerably better pitcher than Chase Anderson. But Arizona, in my mind at least, a better lineup than the Padres. So I'm not going to be stacking a ton of Diamondbacks bats. I think that some of them are in play, maybe a mini stack, some of the lefties. But, I mean, for me, it's going to be the San Diego Padres righty bats, and I think that you're on board with that too.
Completely. I really like the 1 through 4 for San Diego tonight. You're looking at Corey Spangenberg, Will Myers, Justin Upton, Matt Kemp. If you're on DK and you can go 6 deep, we certainly like Derek Norris, who I pointed out on the FanDuel Punch-Out earlier, hits the ball in the air against right-handed pitching, over a 40% fly ball rate against righties since 2012. So fly balls at Chase Field have a tendency to reach the seats. So guy with above-average power like Norris looks pretty good, and I'd expect him to hit probably 5th. And then an interesting addition to the Padres lineup who won't get that righty-righty reverse platoon split advantage, but will get to hit with the platoon advantage of being a lefty against a righty, which is his preferred split. That's Will Venable, who was playing the outfield last night with Will Myers playing first base. So if he hits in the 6th hole, that's a nice 1 through 6 stack. Though the problem with this is, unless Will Myers magically has first base eligibility by this evening, which he's not going to, you do have 4 outfielders. But it does give you the opportunity to create a unique stack, which, as we've talked about, maybe you drop Will Myers from that stack and you go Spangenberg and Upton and Kemp and Venable and Norris, and all of a sudden you've got a stack that nobody else has or very few people have. So going to be a popular game because of the big total. Padres are probably going to be a popular stack because they are facing Chase Anderson with the big total. Maybe not, obviously not the most popular stack with the game at Coors Field, with Jason Marquis on the hill, with the rookie facing the Reds at home, but definitely one that I would expect to be utilized a little bit. So definitely get yourself some Padres exposure.
Yeah, I'm absolutely with you there. And next up, we have Houston at the Los Angeles Angels, and I know you and I both like both of these pitchers. Cash games and tournaments even. Obviously, there's a few better options, but I think both guys are in play for both. So, With that being said, I'm not stacking either one of these teams here tonight.
No, I'll grab some one-offs, few left-handed batters from the Astros, but they're too right-handed dominant to really like stacking against Shoemaker. If you're going to stack against Shoemaker, you want lefties. And I just don't see any way that they're going to construct a lineup tonight where you just get enough lefties to make it worthwhile. Maybe you hook a couple lefties depending on where they hit in the order, but no full-blown stacks here. As far as Keuchel, I'm certainly not stacking any Angels against him. Trout's always in play. Pujols hits lefties, but he's not the old Albert Pujols. But these aren't guys. This isn't a lineup that you're stacking against Keuchel. Keuchel's been phenomenal. His great ERA is supported by awesome ERA estimators such as FIP and XFIP. So he's a guy that's in play to use in GPPs and cash games, but not a guy that we're going to be picking on.
Yeah, it seems like some single bullets with some of these guys. And one more guy I'm going to throw in there if you are going to play someone against him, and this guy is really cheap, is David Freese. Hits lefties pretty well. Should be batting cleanup tonight. But like we said, I mean, big-time upside with some of these guys. They're going to be popular plays, so I guess if you're just going the contrarian route, you're going to stack a ton of teams. These will be some targets. They're going to be lower owned if you want to stack these teams. But, I mean, don't get your hopes up because I'm not expecting a whole lot of runs there. And, it seems like Vegas agrees with that too because I guess I kind of skipped the odds there. But a 7-run total here, pretty much a pick 'em. Vegas saying, Pitcher's Park, not a lot of runs expected. I mean, it's, just not a great situation for hitters here.
Not at all. 2
more games on tap here. One of these is not so interesting. We got Miami at San Francisco Giants. Obviously, Madison Bumgarner on the bump. Got off to a rough start this season, but pitching really well over his last 2 games. And this one, 6.5-run total in one of the better pitchers' parks in the game. Bumgarner minus 160 favorites. So there's one player that you and I are playing from Miami, and his name is Giancarlo Stanton. Do not call him Mike, but do play him in your tournaments tonight if you're not playing Madison Bumgarner because he's got great BVP, 8 for 13, 6 extra base hits, monster power. Outside of that, no thanks.
Yeah, and I mean, he annihilates left-handed pitching. That's what Stanton does. He's really the only play on the Marlins tonight. They have a team run total, according to Pinnacle, of 3. So Bumgarner, my top pitching option on the night. Love him at home at pitcher-friendly AT&T Park against a lineup that's not very good against lefties and one that is projected with an over-under total of 3. You got to like that. David Phelps on the other side. He's pretty average-ish, which is something. I mean, it's not a guy that you necessarily have to go out of your way to attack. But you mentioned on the other podcast on the FanDuel Punch-Out that how good Brandon Belt's been. We know that Buster Posey's one of the top hitting catchers in the game, arguably the top hitting catcher in the game. Better against lefties than righties, but I guess there's some modest stack potential, but with only a team projected run total of 3.5 by Vegas, not one that I'm going to go out of my way to grab. But we talked about contrarian stacks in that Houston-LA game. If you're going to go contrarian stack, I would much rather pick on David Phelps than Shoemaker or Keuchel. And you've got some better options here. You got switch hitting Pagan. You got, as I said, Brandon Belt's hitting a favorable lineup spot. You got Buster Posey. You got left-handed hitting Norichika Aoki. So you've got, this has some modest stack potential, but it's from the contrarian point of view, not from great expectation of scoring.
Yeah, I'm with you there. And I mean, the Giants are a cheap stack because they've been, like you said, maybe slightly above average at hitting. Brandon Belt hasn't been around the entire season. He missed a couple games there with an injury. We know Buster Posey hasn't quite been himself yet. But, I mean, there's still guys that can hit in this lineup. So I'm with you there. A stack you can make, but it's mostly to be contrarian, not one that you're going crazy with here. So last game on tap here is Oakland at Seattle. And this one's going to be interesting because neither one of these pitchers is great, but neither one of these pitchers is terrible. So, and we also have a pitcher's park in Seattle at Safeco. Happ, a lefty, minus 125 favorite against Hahn, who's a righty. 7.5 run total. If this was the middle of last season, I'd say go ahead, stack your Seattle bats, get yourself tons of Seattle bats because at home they tend to mash righties, and they haven't done that so much this year. It's been kind of a frustrating year so far with them with their righty bats. But at the same time, I mean, there's certainly still some upside with these Seattle bats because there's a lot of good hitters, even if they're not producing at a high level. So I think that's my preferred stack here. Happ's been fine, like he's adequate. Oakland bats, most of them really good against righties, and they're still missing guys like I can't think of his name. Ben Zobrist is out right now. So, and then you got Marcus Semien was hitting well. Now he's down in the 8 hole. Josh Reddick, really the only guy that you really have any sort of confidence in this lineup, in this matchup.
Yeah, I mean, I would add Billy Butler to that. He does hit left-handed pitching well, but I mean, unless they have some crazy lineup construction today, not really a huge fan of the A's. I will be watching for the lineup card. Maybe Simeon jumps back up into the 2-hole. Maybe I mean, Coco Crisp was a switch hitter who will at least get to bat right-handed against Happ, but not a stack that I love. Again, if you're using it, it's to be contrarian. You're not using it because you're expecting a huge output. You're using it hoping you get that huge run output and can surge ahead of the field, but not one that I'm going out of my way with. The Mariners, they get a righty. We know Seager's better against righties than lefties. Cano, same there. Nelson Cruz hits everyone who throws a baseball at this point in time. Seth Smith should hit in the top 4, who is very good against right-handed pitching. So there is some stack potential there. Hahn not missing many bats this year, giving up a lot of contact, which you're always playing with fire when you're relying on your fielders. Bad day of whether it's seeing eye singles that turn into passing the baton on to the next guy and that Nelson Cruz dinger, all of a sudden you've got yourself a nice little scoring stack there. So I do think that there is some potential here, but not a huge total on this game. Vegas has the Mariners at 3.5 for their team total tonight. Not the worst. I mean, we do have some 3s out there, but a number of teams with a 4 total tonight, which means that this is going to be low owned. So there is some potential there, and we did see Hahn get knocked around in his last start against the Twins. So if he's allowing a lot of contact, which I expect him to, he is flirting with danger.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm with you there. I mean, there's some potential here, but not a one. But also at the same time, there's only 9 games tonight, so we're not talking about these huge slates we see most nights, 12 to 15 games. So you're going to need to be different somewhere. But I think that tonight the way to be different with your stacks and tournaments is to not just go strictly. Obviously FanDuel you can only play 4, but DraftKings you can play 6. Just don't just go 1 through 4. Throw in some 2 through 5s or even like some wraparound stacks. These American League teams, or especially if you get a National League team that bats the pitcher 8th, I love going 9 through 5 stacks, because if that 9-hole hitter gets on, scores a run, maybe steals a base, whatever it may be, I mean, always going to be low owned. I mean, you never see 9-hole hitters more than a few percent owned in tournaments. So I think that's the way to differentiate yourself, rather than going out of your way to play stacks that are just not in good spots.
Yep, I agree. And the other thing to add with that, the 9-hole hitter, if one of these National League clubs, let's say the Dodgers, bump Kershaw up to 8 and hit somebody else 9th, is they're usually cheap. I mean, very cheap, which gives you tons of money to use on your one-off players that really also help differentiate you. Because, I mean, if there's others that are getting slick like you are, and let's say only 5% of the people using the Dodger stack are using that 9 through 5 wraparound, how are you going to set yourself apart from that other 5? Well, by having some money to spend on some of these other guys at other positions, and maybe picking the right ones, grabbing a Nelly Cruz against, I mean, it's a righty, but you get the idea. Grabbing one of these big boppers that can help you really put up a big point total outside of your stack.
Yeah, and another way you can differentiate yourself is obviously your most high-owned pitchers are going to be those guys in the top 4. So maybe if you go with a cheaper pitcher, leave a little bit of money on the table. I'm not saying if you're playing, not if you're playing one tournament. If you're a guy who's playing a lot, or girl who's playing a lot of tournament entries, really the way to go to differentiate yourself other ways is, people think they have to spend every dollar. You get a lineup you like and you have $900 left, you're like, well, how can I upgrade? You don't have to always upgrade. Leave the $900 on the table, and then be the guy who has a great lineup with $900 left.
And that's the thing; it creates a unique lineup. And on a medium-sized slate like tonight, that is a really good way to differentiate from the field.
Yeah, absolutely. And with that, thanks for spending your Saturday with us. Find us on Twitter at DF Cafe. He's at BeachHat50. I'm at BigIdly42. We got a lot of great content for tonight's slate, for every other slate at dailyfantasycafe.com. So if you're looking for some advice, just want to check out all of our content, certainly check that out. And we will see you guys again next time.